Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Jacob, and this is ShuckleTV. Today, I'm going to be attempting a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon X using only flying type Pokemon. As an added challenge though, I will also be taking on every single Sky Trainer in the game. There's a total of 14 of these trainers, and we are going to prove to them who the true Sky Trainer really is. This is actually my very first video, so thank you to everyone joining me on this exciting new adventure. We're following typical hardcore Nuzlocke rules, which I'll show here, but basically mean, if something faints it's considered dead, a whiteout is considered a loss, no items in battle except for held items. We're going to play on set mode with no mega evolutions, and I will be using the species clause, which means I can re-roll encounters until I find a unique flying type or something that evolves into one. Since we're focused on flying in this run, we decide to name ourselves Ted Striker. And with that, our journey finally begins. We wake up, we head over to the mirror and put some clothes on. Then we step outside, only to be greeted by some strangers during a solar eclipse. They take us out to a nice cafe, introduce themselves, and insist on calling me Shirley. They do let me pick a Pokemon to take with me, but as these starters can never ascend to a beautiful flying form, we'll pick Fennekin for now as our Pokemon-sized paperweight. Serena teaches us how to catch a Pokemon, and then we get our very first encounter. Sadly, it ends up being a Scatterbug, which is going to make the early game pretty difficult. I would have preferred a Pidgey, or even better a Fletchling, but we'll make do with this. We name him Dr. Rumac. We then begin the incredibly tedious training session to bring him up to a level that can actually fight anything. I have to fight a lot of Weedles here. But despite Weedle's Poison Sting having a 200% chance to poison on hit, Dr. Rumac manages to take nearly a dozen of these without even getting poisoned a single time. We then enter Santaloon Forest and find our next encounter, a Caterpie. We decide to name him Margarine. The Mono Bug run is already off in full swing. We quickly evolve him into a Metapod, and then we reach the next town and get rid of our glorified paperweight. We then head back to Route 3 to pick up our next encounter. Oh no. A Burmy. So Burmy, when female, does not evolve into a flying type. This is a male Burmy though, which evolves into Mothim, which is a pretty uninspired Butterfree clone. So we name it Batterfree, feel a little bit of self-loathing, and we continue our bug run. After a bit more training, Dr. Rumac evolves into Spupa, and Margarine evolves into Butterfree, finally giving us our very first flying type. Our final encounter before the first gym is a Farfetch'd. She should be super easy to catch, since we now have Sleep Powder at our disposal. We throw our Pokeball, it wiggles. Oh. Well, surely the next one will get her. Huh. This Farfetch'd completely rejects our request to join the team, nearly killing Butterfree because she also seems to be holding a stick, which gives her +2 crit chance. We finally manage to catch her though, and we name her Falafel before taking her straight to Viola. With Aerial Ace at the ready, Farfetch'd easily sweeps through Viola's team. 1 Aerial Ace for Surskit, and then 2 Aerial Aces to take down Vivillon. Vivillon. We then get the experience share, and our next encounter, which actually ends up being a female Combee. Maybe my luck is finally changing. We catch our 4th bug type and name her Elizabeth. Spupa finally evolves into Vivillon. We reach Lumiose City. I really like the way that Lumiose looks. A lot of care and detail was clearly put into it. It's probably one of the most interestingly designed areas in any Pokemon game, even if it's sometimes a little tedious to navigate without paying for the overpriced taxis. We then head to the professor's lab so we can finally meet him. And... oh. We were here to meet Professor Sexymo. The tree professor challenges us to a battle, but despite his distracting looks, Falafel manages to obliterate all his Kanto starters, and he even gives us one. We choose Charmander because we literally can't choose the others. We name him Hot Sauce and continue on our way, stumbling upon a lion of a man. Mufasa tells us about how everything the light touches is just so dang beautiful, before making a stylish exit. We then meet him again 4 seconds later in a cafe where he talks about things and how they're just real beautiful, before he once again saunters off in style. We also meet some lady called Dina or Dana or something. We probably won't see her again. We catch our next encounter, a Doduo, and name them Pam and Sue. We then add them to our team and rename our death box to properly capture the gravity of the situation. Hot Sauce evolves into Charmeleon, and we take a commemorative picture outside the perfume place. We then catch a Nincada and name her Jasmine. We save a rich man's poodle, and in good fashion, he rewards us with a celebratory firework. Yeah, Shauna, those were my thoughts exactly. With the Pokeflute now in hand, we can finally pass the sleeping Snorlax, and here we learn that the definitions I have for wide and open vary greatly from Nintendo's definitions. We start the battle, and I plan to steal the citrus berry it's holding. Doduo can only be hit by one of Snorlax's attacks, Tackle, and it would have to crit to kill me, meaning it's barely over a 1% chance to happen. After having its berries stolen, Snorlax immediately takes revenge on both Pam and Sue's lives, committing a double homicide, preventing them from ever becoming a throuple in the future. Lesson learned. Never come between a Snorlax and its food. My greed cost 2 lives today. We catch a Hoppip here, but I accidentally turned on nighttime mode for brightness. Anyway, I'm super excited to use Jumpluff because it's in very few games, and I really like the design of it. I name him Cotton Swab, and then I catch a Zubat and name her Rouge. Then I get a Magikarp and name her Dump. After that, I get a Woobat and name her When Pigs. Combee then evolves into Vespiquen, and we proceed to smash up some rocks until we finally find an old Amber, getting us an Aerodactyl, who I name Franklin, but the game doesn't actually let me name fossils right away when they're revived, so we'll fix that later. Hoppip then evolves into Skiploom, and we celebrate all our new additions with a change in outfit. Unfortunately, it ends up looking much worse than I thought it would, and the retail worker lies to us about what she thinks. We then get to catch a Sigilyph, and I'm super excited because I love Sigilyph and never get to use them and... Oh. Don't say it. In the second gym, we experience some difficulty, and Batterfree ends up making the ultimate sacrifice to let us take down a Relicanth, which is honestly much stronger than either of the gym leader's Pokemon. Aerodactyl manages to get off 2 Bulldozes before falling asleep and taking a pretty powerful Rock Tomb. Charmeleon comes in and finishes things off with a Dragon Rage. I decide to train a bit more before continuing the gym, and I bring Dump up into a Gyarados, and evolve Rouge into a Golbat, and then immediately afterwards into a Crobat. The team is looking a bit more solid now. We take on Grant and get ready to bust up his rock types. I lead with Gyarados, who I've taught Rock Smash, to capitalize on Amora's ×4 weakness to fighting moves. It doesn't quite kill, and he ends up using Thunder Wave back. He then heals, and another Rock Smash brings him just within death range. He actually does not heal this time, goes for Aurora Beam, but I end up being fully paralyzed. Next turn, I take him out with a Rock Smash. Tyrant comes in, and now I need a free switch. This is why we brought Jasmine. Jasmine's sacrifice allows us to then switch to Aerodactyl. Jasmine actually manages to take a stomp, but it's not enough to save our poor bug, and then she goes down, allowing Aerodactyl to come in safe and sound. A Bulldoze from Aerodactyl does over half of Tyrant's health, and slows his speed. A crit would have been very scary though, but we managed to live the Rock Tomb and take him down with a final Bulldoze. The second gym is ours. Skiploom then evolves into Jumpluff. We will keep this precious soul safe. Just outside of Reflection Cave, I catch a Staravia and name her Greta. When we enter Reflection Cave, I use a Repel because incredible danger lurks around every corner. Hey, I said I used a Repel, get out of here! After making it all the way through the cave, I catch a Chatot and I name her Chatty Cathy. She will never be particularly helpful. We head to the Mega Evolution Tower and meet a man whose eyebrows could double as the Titanic's rudder. After that, we fight our childhood friend that we met for the first time earlier today, and we take a gorgeous snapshot to commit this location to memory. Next up is the fighting gym leader Karina, so I've come up with an expertly crafted strategy to take her on. I lead with Crobat and decide that Aerial Ace is the best course of action. It wipes out Mienfoo and then she sends out Machoke, and after careful consideration, I deem Aerial Ace to be the best option. We take a Rock Tomb and then switch to Aerial Ace before finally finishing things off with a well-timed Aerial Ace. Hawlucha comes out, who sets up a Hone Claws while I cripple him tactically with an Aerial Ace. We just barely managed to take the quadruple resisted Flying Press before settling things once and for all with an Aerial Ace. She then tries to give us a Lucario, but he doesn't fly, so we look deeply into his eyes and then leave. We get into a dangerous fight with a Skytrainer's Sigilif, who boosts its own special attack with Charge Beam twice, while Aerodactyl sits fully paralyzed for both turns, forcing me to sacrifice Vespiquen. We then fight Serena in front of the grass gym, but it was a pretty straightforward fight with Aerodactyl crunching the Meowstic and Gyarados easily handling the Frogadier and Absol. Ramos leads the 4th gym, and we're going to execute a complicated Crobat strategy. First, we use Acrobatics, wiping out the Jumpluff. Then, he sends out Go-Goat, so we switch things over to Acrobatics to take it out. Lastly, Acrobatics takes out the not even fully evolved Weeping Bell. That's 4 badges down. We then reach what I view as the absolute worst area in the game. The strong winds prevent you from nicely moving around, and the moving encounters are super frequent and often unavoidable. This little clip is just a fraction of what you have to deal with in this area. It doesn't help that 2 of the 3 encounters also have Arena Trap, although that doesn't affect flying types. We then defeat the weirdly sultry ballerina scientist from Team Flare, and we head back to Lumiose City, because Shauna's friend, who is a child and a gym leader, is apparently in charge of the city's electricity. And he has plunged the world into darkness. We finally get around to naming Franklin, and Hot Sauce evolves into a Charizard just in time to be deathly allergic to this gym. When fighting an Ampharos, there's a very strange interaction that actually caused me to get paralyzed by static when using the move Grass Knot, despite it both being a special move and having a description that heavily implies there is no contact between the 2 Pokémon. We move on to fight Clement, the most threatening fight in the entire game for this challenge. Aerodactyl easily wipes out the Emolga with a Rock Tomb, but Magneton is the real threat here. After a necessary sacrifice, pigs no longer fly. I considered sending out Charizard here, but Magneton's Sturdy prevents me from taking it out in one hit, and I do not think Charizard can handle a Thunderbolt. I ultimately decide on sending out Jumpluff, because I can put it to sleep, I can Leech Seed it, and I can slowly hurt it with Grass Knots, while healing up with Synthesis. This feels like the safest play. Grass Knot does not do very much damage, but the Magneton stays asleep, and we continue to heal a little bit from Leech Seed. I continue to Grass Knot, chipping away at the Magneton, and then he sets up an Electric Terrain. Here is where I make a grave and fatal mistake. I use Sleep Powder because I did not know that Electric Terrain prevents sleep. Magneton gets off a really powerful Thunderbolt, and now I'm in a really bad position. Clement heals Magneton, so now I have to deal with this thing with its boosted electric moves for an entire health bar again. There's also no guarantee that I'm even going to be able to kill it this time before Clement uses his second Hyper Potion. I've been put on defense now and have to use Synthesis in order to heal because those Thunderbolts deal over half Jumpluff's health, and there is not a single Pokemon in my team that can switch in and take a Thunderbolt. Electric Terrain finally fades, and I miss the Sleep Powder, starting the vicious cycle all over again. Any of these Thunderbolts paralyzing Jumpluff all but guarantee I lose many members of my team in this fight, because if Jumpluff cannot outspeed this Magneton, I can't heal with Synthesis before a Thunderbolt would kill me. A critical hit Thunderbolt during certain turns where I'm not at full health would also be the end of Jumpluff, so I need Cotton Swab here to do his very best. He manages to tank through these Thunderbolts and finally reach the point where Electric Terrain fades, and I miss Sleep Powder for the second time. If Jumpluff survives this fight, I'm putting the wide lens on it. 75 accuracy apparently means misses every time. After a few more grass knots, and using all of our synthesis PP, we finally manage to stall out the Magneton and take it down. But now Cotton Swab, which is our best answer to Heliolisk, has no synthesis PP left, and can't take it down. I have to choose someone else to send in. Charizard and Butterfree both have Lax Incense on them, which means there's a 10% chance they could survive. But I don't think I can sacrifice Charizard at this point. I need him to help against the Ice Gym, which would otherwise be very difficult without him. I end up having to sacrifice Margarine here, which I'm not happy about. Margarine did an amazing job carrying us through the early game of this run, and it really hurts to have to make a sacrifice like this. After Margarine perishes, it allows Aerodactyl to cleanly switch in and use Protect to stall out the last turn of Electric Terrain. I then use Bulldoze on Heliolisk, dealing a large chunk of damage and lowering its speed. I manage to just barely take a Thunderbolt, but I celebrate a bit too early. I go for another Bulldoze, and Heliolisk goes for Quick Attack. I should have known it was coming. Heliolisk only has 3 moves. I can only imagine what Margarine must be doing, knowing I lost Franklin to an oversight like this. Half our team has been eradicated, but the battle is all but done. Rouge comes in with a powerful return, exacting revenge for our fallen teammates. I take a moment to reflect on the losses experienced in this gym. Like Icarus, perhaps I was too arrogant to see the situation I had gotten myself into, and unfortunately, my loving teammates paid my price. We beat up Serena again, and then get to my favorite part of any Nuzlocke. As I ride my bicycle up the stairs and down the slide, I contemplate the gravity of my actions. Had I been more prepared, the deaths I witnessed could have been prevented. I'll never see Margarine, or Franklin, or that bat thing ever again. All because I wasn't good enough. My own haste led to the undeserved loss of so many lives. That can never be taken back, and I must live with it forever. After arriving in the next town, I decide to change my outfit into something less terrible, and begin the 6th gym. Valerie leads with Mawile, and I lead with Charizard. Fire Pledge obliterates Mawile, and then she sends out Mr. Mime. Ugh. Shadowclaw carves out more than half his health, but it sets up a Reflect. Fire Pledge finishes it off, and then Sylveon comes out. Sylveon isn't particularly strong in this matchup, and I'm holding a leftovers on Charizard, so I just start whittling it down with Fire Pledges, eventually switching to Shadowclaw when the Reflect fades. I alternate using Protect each turn to get a little bit extra healing out of the leftovers. Eventually, Valerie uses a Hyper Potion, so I decide to switch over to Rouge to do a bit more damage. One Acrobatics, though, ends up making Rouge fall in love thanks to Cute Charm. So I switch Rouge out and over to Jumpluff in order to use Leech Seed and put this fight on a timer. After a couple Grass Knots, Sylveon falls into the red, but Valerie uses a Hyper Potion on him, bringing him back to full health. Rouge comes back in to settle things with the man who toyed with her heart, and after 2 Acrobatics, manages to take down Sylveon and claim the 6th gym badge. In the Pokeball Factory, I messed up. Jumpluff took a critical Thunderbolt and was paralyzed, so I ended up having to send in Chatty Cathy as a sacrifice. We did end up beating Team Flare though, with no other losses. I then catch a Murkrow, and I'm not sure exactly what I was thinking, but I decided to name it Al Capone 2. Greta then evolves into a beautiful big bird, and learns Close Combat. We then catch a very important team member, Rotom, and we name him ShuckleTV. Time to go shove him into a fan. After finishing Frost Cavern, I end up catching a Delibird and name him Mr. Pants. He will never leave the box. We reach Annister City, and I take a nice picture of this big crystal in the background before heading on over to the 7th gym. Olympia leads with Sigilyph, and I lead with ShuckleTV. Thunderbolt almost takes it out, but unfortunately it sets up a light screen, so now I'm going to do a lot less damage. I considered switching to Gyarados here to start setting up Dragon Dances, but I decide to just go for a Thunderbolt. Olympia ends up healing though, and Thunderbolt does less than half of Sigilyph's health. I decide to switch to Dump and just start going for Dragon Dances. Sigilyph lands a Psychic on the switch-in. Next turn, I go for a Dragon Dance and Sigilif uses Reflect. I go for another Dragon Dance, but Sigilif lands a Psychic that lowers my special defense. I take it out with Aqua Tail, but now I'm worried about staying in versus the Slowking, because with the special defense drop, I don't know if I can take a Psychic, and I certainly can't knock it out in one hit. I switch to Jumpluff and end up taking a Yawn. The next turn I use Sleep Powder, and Cotton Swab and the Slowking take a Power Nap together. Here it would have been smart for me to actually just stall for time and let Jumpluff wake up, but instead I end up switching to Shaco Bell in order to go for Thunderbolts and take out the Slowking. One Thunderbolt deals more than half of Slowking's health, and the second Thunderbolt takes him out. Meowstic comes out next, and this is why it would have been good for me to have Jumpluff wake up. Jumpluff is by far the best Pokemon to handle this Meowstic. After some deliberation, I decide that just sending out Jumpluff and hoping for a wake-up is the best course of action. Meowstic does end up landing a pretty weak Psychic here, but then next turn sets up Calm Mind, so things are starting to get a little bit scary. After a few turns, I do manage to wake up just in time, and then I go for a Sleep Powder, putting the Meowstic to sleep. I then go for a Synthesis to heal, because Meowstic's actually faster than Jumpluff, and I can't have it waking up quickly and taking Jumpluff out. Meowstic then wakes up, and we land a Leech Seed, which is great for putting this fight on a timer and giving us some extra recovery. Unfortunately, Jumpluff can't stay in anymore because it will go down to a Psychic, and it'll be outsped. I have to switch over to Shaco Bell, who does have Protect and Leftovers to hopefully be able to stall out the Meowstic's attacks. On the turn I switch, Meowstic goes for Calm Mind, now putting it at +2 special attack and special defense, making it a very scary threat, and its Psychics are going to hurt a lot. I decide that the best course of action is to just Thunderbolt for chip damage, and then alternate between using Protect in order to get the Leech Seed and Leftovers healing. We do have to risk a critical Psychic here though. Shaco Bell manages to hold on, take the Psychic, and retaliate with a Thunderbolt, and then Leech Seed manages to kill the Meowstic. With that, we have 7 gym badges. We immediately proceed to Lysander Labs to deal with Team Flare. We run into Lysander, and I'm going to skip over this battle as there are 3 with him in quick succession, and this is a pretty easy one. Most of his team isn't even fully evolved yet. We defeat a scientist, talk to a weird giant, and then bet the fate of the world on a coin toss. We actually end up winning, but the game was rigged from the start. His scientist ends up activating the ultimate weapon anyway. We then head to Geosenge Town, and Lysander cries a little bit before we beat him up. After storming through his base, we find a sickly deer and put it out of its misery. It doesn't seem as though we can progress this way though, it really wants to join us, so we end up having to throw our Master Ball at it and prepare for Lysander v3. Lysander returns in his Halloween outfit and prepares to fight to the death. This can be a difficult and scary fight, not just because of the fact that he actually brings us to the surface of the sun for the showdown. He leads with Mian Shao, but 1 acrobatics from Rouge is more than enough to take it out. He then sends out Pyroar, but I know that Rouge can still handle this. I go for another acrobatics and it deals most of Pyroar's health. Rouge easily tanks a Fire Blast and finishes off the Pyroar with an acrobatics. Honchkrow comes out next, and we switch to Gyarados to deal with it. It hits us with a weak Night Slash on the switch. I go for Aqua Tail, but my 90% accuracy Nintendo approved move misses, and Honchkrow hits us with a crit. The same thing happens next turn, and now Dump is almost dead. We switch out to Greta and take a Night Slash before finally taking out Honchkrow with our very own return. Last up is Mega Gyarados. Cotton Swab switches in and easily tanks an Aqua Tail before putting the gigantic koi monster to sleep. We then Leech Seed it, all but guaranteeing our victory. The big fish continues to sleep, so we hit it with a Grass Knot next turn, which ends up taking out more than half its health. And since it doesn't wake up, a second Grass Knot the next turn finishes off the monster. That's it, Lysander is defeated. And with one final wah! Lysander unveils his true plan, attacking space. But space has a trick up its sleeve. Lysander's weapon is turned against him, annihilating Geosenge Town and leaving him buried beneath it, to forever contemplate his own lack of mortality. We meet the last Sky Trainer and pretty easily take this one down. All 14 have now been defeated. We then meet a polar bear and he challenges us to a battle. I lead with Charizard to capitalize on one of Abomasnow's 94 weaknesses. A single flamethrower easily takes out the Abomasnow. And then he sends in Cryogonal, which almost dies to a flamethrower but ends up using Confuse Ray, which slows down the battle a bit. It doesn't really have anything to hit us, so we just have a bit of back and forth as I occasionally heal with Roost and eventually hit it with Flamethrower and finish it off. He then ends things off with Avalugg, who also dies to a single Flamethrower. And that's Wulfric. 8 badges down. This is where I make a fatal mistake. I talk to this Ace trainer, who leads with a Sableye, which isn't the threat in this situation, but you'll see what is. The Sableye is easily taken down by 2 waterfalls, but then comes out Crustle, a true monster. It has Shell Smash, and it is going to kill someone on my team, unless I flinch it with Waterfall. But the flinch doesn't happen, it sets up, and now all that's left is to perish. We go for Waterfall, but we're outsped, and Dump falls to a Rock Wrecker. This could have been avoided if I would have set up Dragon Dances against the Sableye, or if I had just not talked to this trainer at all. Turns out I can just go from the left side of Victory Road, over where Santaloon City is, and just reach it that way, avoiding all these battles. We then catch an Altaria and name him Puffin. He will end up being our Gyarados replacement. However, there's another thing we have to worry about first. We catch a Mantike, so that we are actually able to surf and waterfall our way through Victory Road in order to get to the Elite Four. We name her Boat. After making my way through Victory Road, we run into Serena for the last time. She leads with Meowstic and I lead with Crobat. Inner Focus allows us to avoid the Fake Out, and Acrobatics nearly takes out the Meowstic, with Cross Poison finishing it off next turn. She then sends out Greninja, and while I know he has Ice Beam and is a bit threatening, Rouge is very bulky. So I decide to just take the hit, go for Acrobatics, and do as much damage as I can. After easily tanking the Ice Beam, U-Turn wipes out the Greninja and allows us a free switch to Cotton Swab. Unfortunately, Serena sends out Flareon in return, so I can't leave Cotton Swab in. I switch to Charizard, easily tanking a hit. I then go for Air Slash, but end up missing. It ultimately doesn't matter though, because Flareon cannot do anything to Charizard, and I do have Roost to heal up in case anything goes even remotely wrong. Altaria comes in next, and I decide to stay in and land Will-O-Wisp before I switch out, just to burn the target and weaken it a bit more. After burning it, I switch over to Cotton Swab. My plan is, you guessed it, to Leech Seed it and let it slowly die. It goes for a couple Dragon Pulses, which ultimately aren't very threatening. We use Synthesis to heal up, and before you know it, the Altaria has fallen. Serena sends in Absol last, we land a Sleep Powder and put it to sleep, then go for Leech Seed in order to start draining its health, and a few Giga Drains will seal the deal. It does wake up and land one pretty hefty crit, but before you know it, it's gone, and the final fight with Serena is over. After that, all that's left is a little bit of Victory Road and a few more threatening Ace trainers. After we finish the final surfing section, Boat has fulfilled her purpose and helped us reach the Elite Four. We lead with Crobat in order to take out the next trainer's Trevenant, but then Gigalith comes in, and I need Jumpluff in, but I can't safely switch it in. It'll die to a crit Stone Edge, so Boat makes the ultimate sacrifice. The Stone Edge actually does end up critting as well, so this really mattered. Jumpluff comes in, puts the Gigalith to sleep, and then proceeds to kill it with a few Giga Drains. We reach the Elite Four, and in order to celebrate, we take a beautiful landscape photo. After some training, this is what the final team looks like, movesets, held items, and all. I'm feeling pretty confident about this team. I feel like there's a good diversity of move coverage, these are very strong Pokemon in general, and the Elite Four isn't super threatening other than a few individual Pokemon that some of the members have. We decide to take on Malva first. Never name your children this. She leads with Pyroar, and I lead with Altaria. The plan is to Dragon Dance, Setup, and Sweep with Earthquake. However, Pyroar keeps using Noble Roar, which lowers special attack and attack. So basically, my special attack's dropping, which doesn't matter, but my speed's going up and my attack is staying the same. It also occasionally hyper voices, but we have Roost in order to take care of any healing we need. So we kind of get into a back and forth stall where I'm slowly gaining attack, sometimes losing it, healing when necessary, until eventually I finally feel like I'm at a good enough level and I switch over to start using Earthquake. Another Earthquake then takes out the Torkoal that comes in, and then they send out Talonflame, and I go for a Dragon Claw, easily one-shotting it, but I do get burned by the Flame Body and don't have quite enough attack to comfortably take out the Chandelure. So, I switch over to Staraptor, anticipating a Shadow Ball. Chandelure actually goes for Confuse Ray at this time, so then I switch over to Charizard because I think it's going to Flamethrower. It does go for Flamethrower and we easily soak the hit. I go for an Air Slash in order to do a little bit of damage and chip away at it. It goes for a Confuse Ray, so I switch back over to Staraptor because now I really think it's going to Shadow Ball, and it actually ends up using Confide to lower my special attack instead. We go for a Brave Bird and easily win the fight. I'm not really sure how Malva thought her last Pokemon was going to win without ever attacking. Next up is Seabolt, who leads with Clawitzer, while I lead with Shaco Bell. I land a pretty powerful Thunderbolt that even paralyzes, and he retaliates with a potent Water Pulse. He ends up using a full restore next turn, but goes down to a critical Thunderbolt. Seabolt then sends out Barbaracle, which is the most threatening member of his team. I go for a Protect in order to heal up just a little bit with leftovers, before deciding whether or not to switch out. I realize I can't though, so I go for a Thunderbolt and deal most of Barbaracle's health. I barely managed to tank the Stone Edge, but wouldn't have lived if it crit. We then go for another Thunderbolt when he heals in order to bring him back down, and then finally, our third Thunderbolt wipes out the Barbaracle. Major threat gone. Gyarados comes out next, and I have to worry a little bit about whether or not I outspeed it, but it's pretty clear that I should, so I just go for a Thunderbolt and take it out. Last up is Starmie, which really can't do anything against the rest of our team in this situation, so we go for a Protect just to get some last-minute leftovers recovery before switching out to Jumpluff. And now it's time to begin that same old song and dance. Jumpluff lands a Sleep Powder, and then next turn we go for a Leech Seed to put the fight on a timer. With the additional healing from Leech Seed and Jumpluff's natural bulk, we don't really have to worry about anything that the Starmie can throw at us at this point. We start hitting it with Giga Drains in order to slowly bring it down, and that combined with the Leech Seed is eventually enough to grant us the win. Second Elite Four member down. Now we're going to switch over to Drasna. Drasna leads with one of her okay at best dragons, Dragalge, but a single Acrobatics from Rouge easily takes it out. She then sends out Noivern, and an Acrobatics deals more than half its health and damage, while we easily take a Dragon Pulse from it. The second Acrobatics takes out the Noivern, and then she sends out Altaria. An Acrobatics deals a lot of damage to Altaria, and it retaliates with a pretty weak Dragon Pulse, so we go for Roost to heal up nicely, but it does land a Sing and put us to sleep. I decide that it's best to just stay in and eventually wake up. So I keep clicking Roost until I finally wake up and heal. After that, Altaria lands another weak Dragon Pulse, and we go for Acrobatics, finishing it off. The last Pokemon that Drasna sends out is Druddigon. Another Acrobatics deals a large chunk of damage to it. I feel like I've said that quite a few times already this fight, but then Druddigon goes for Dragon Tail and knocks Rouge out of the combat, ending her sweep. Puffin is the one that gets switched in from the Dragon Tail, and a Dragon Claw easily ends the fight. Last up is Wikstrom, and honestly the one that scares me the most. I lead with Cotton Swab in order to deal with the Klefki. I put it to sleep and plan on Leech Seeding it and slowly taking it down in order to keep Jumpluff in for when Probopass inevitably comes out second. This ends up being a bit of a tedious process though because Steel types resist Grass, Giga Drain does almost nothing, and Wikstrom does have healing at his disposal. After the Leech Seed, we continue to hit him with Giga Drains until eventually he gets down into the red and Wikstrom uses a full restore, waking him up and healing him completely. I get a little impatient and decide to switch to Charizard at this point and use a Flamethrower to take out the set of keys. Out comes Probopass, and I switch back to Jumpluff, and Power Gem hits us and does substantially less damage than I thought it would. We put the Probopass to sleep and begin the very slow process of killing it through Leech Seed and Giga Drain while it is helpless and unable to fight back. It does wake up and land another measly power gem, and we just go for a synthesis to heal up. It can't outdamage our healing, and we are hurting it every single turn. We put it back to sleep, it stays asleep, we hit it with another Giga Drain and bring it into the red. It is at this point that Wikstrom prolongs the incredibly long and painful death of Probopass by using a full restore. So we go for another sleep powder, put him to sleep, and we start the cycle over again. Leech Seed continues to stay even through full restores, which is such a fantastic feature for the move when enemies are going to use potions and other things. Leech Seed truly has been one of the MVPs for this run. Jumpluff has been incredible, and I don't know where I would be without having this incredibly useful Pokemon on my team. We use our very last Giga Drain PP to finally wipe out the Probopass, and then Scizor comes in. We switch to Charizard, who easily tanks the Iron Head and then burns up the Scizor to a crisp with a single flamethrower. Last up is Aegislash, which is the real threat of this fight. I switch to Greta in order to land and Intimidate, and also dodge the incoming Shadow Claw that I believe it's going to go for. It actually goes for King's Shield, so it didn't end up mattering. We then switch to Shaco Bell in order to tank the incoming Iron Head. I then go for a Thunder Wave in order to paralyze and further cripple the Aegislash. In return, it lands a pretty weak Shadow Claw. I go for Protect here to get a bit of leftovers healing, because I also believe that Aegislash is going to go for King's Shield this turn. He does go for King's Shield again, so that's a little annoying, but it's fine. Next turn, we land a Thunderbolt, chipping away at him a little bit, but then he retaliates with a very powerful crit Shadow Claw, so it's time to get Shaco Bell out of there. We switch to Greta in order to land another Intimidate and tank a potential Shadow Claw. He doesn't go for it though, so then we switch to Charizard to tank the next Iron Head. He lands the Iron Head, and he's likely to use King's Shield, which is fine because the next Flamethrower will end the fight when it lands. And with that, Wikstrom is done, all the Elite Four members are gone, and we move on to Champion Diantha. I guess we did end up seeing her again. Anyway, she leads with Hawlucha, which almost always goes for Sword Stance turn 1, so I lead with Staraptor, and I go for a Brave Bird. Her Hawlucha uses Sword Stance and then is quickly taken out by Brave Bird. She sends out Tyrantrum next, and it's in this situation where the smart move would be to go for close combat, hope for a crit or kill, and if I die, Tyrantrum will kill himself from the Head Smash recoil. Margarine wouldn't want that though, so I go for Roost. I heal up, lose the flying typing, and I take that Head Smash head on. The recoil damage halves Tyrantrum's health, so a close combat wipes him out. Diantha then sends in Aurorus. Luckily, Aurorus has horrendous typing, and easily goes down to a quadruple effective close combat. She then sends out Goodra, and I could let Greta die here, but there will be no more sacrifices today. I switch to Rouge, easily tanking a Dragon Pulse from the Goodra, and then go for Acrobatics, dealing over half its health. The next Dragon Pulse does crit and hurt a lot, but another Acrobatics wipes out the Goodra. Gourgeist comes in, and we go for a Roost to heal. Gourgeist actually goes for Phantom Force, giving us a free turn to do whatever we feel like. I decide it's best to just use Roost again and tank the hit, because it's not going to do that much. Phantom Force hits, and then Acrobatics takes out the Gourgeist. All that's left is her Gardevoir. Her Gardevoir Mega evolves by putting on a beautiful ballroom gown. But can she handle Rouge's Cross Poison? She can't. And with that, we win. We're victorious. We have become the champion of Kalos. We didn't even have to make a single sacrifice. At least not in the Elite Four. I'm sure Margarine would be proud. I really enjoyed this challenge. Flying types have a lot of interesting dual typings, and they were really plentiful in this region. I got to use a few Pokemon I'm really familiar with, and some I've never used before, and my goodness did I love Jumpluff. This region offered a really interesting challenge for flying types as well, because all 3 of their weaknesses were gym fights staggered throughout the game that we had to overcome. I hope you enjoyed this journey. I have some other interesting videos coming out pretty soon, or maybe they're already out, depending on when you watch this. The next one's actually a hardcore Nuzlocke with no Pokeballs at all. If that interests you, I would love if you'd click that subscribe button and join the channel. Thanks for watching, everyone. This has been ShuckleTV.